Welcome to the special edition of Hannity, Scandals of the Left. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, in tonight for Sean. The party that often prides itself for being a so-called champion for women is now facing widespread turmoil after multiple high-profile Democrats have been accused of sexual misconduct. Minnesota Senator Al Franken was forced to issue yet another apology yesterday after two more women came forward and accused him of inappropriately grabbing them from behind, bringing the total number of alleged sexual harassment victims to 4. The apology read in part, quote, "I'm a warm person. I hug people. I've learned from recent stories that in some of those encounters I crossed a line for some women, and I know that any number is too many. I feel terribly that I've made some women feel badly, and for that, I am so sorry, and I want to make sure that never happens again." Senator Al Franken is not the only Democrat facing accusations of sexual misconduct. Longtime Congressman John Conyers is also accused of harassment, including one instance where he held a meeting in his underwear. Unfortunately, the so-called Party of Women's Rights isn't quite united in its response to this inter-party sexual harassment, with some calling for Conyers to step down, while others try to dodge the subject. Watch this.
Conyers says it didn't happen. You say he should resign. Why?
Because enough is enough. At this point, what I am voicing publicly is what every single private citizen is saying across America. Why are the rules for politicians in Washington different than they are for everyone else? Once we start getting into the realm of politicians, well, let's get the Ethics Commission into it and, let's investigate this, and take forever to come up with a conclusion.
Do you think Congressman Conyers, you sit with him on Judiciary, should he resign?
Well, I think the ethics process should proceed. The allegations against Congressman Conyers are clearly disturbing, disappointing, deeply troubling. The ethics investigation should be thorough. It should be swift. It should be comprehensive.
So, is it time for Conyers and Franken to resign? And will selective moral outrage over instances of sexual misconduct fracture the Democratic Party? Joining us now is Fox News contributor Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany, and Fox News correspondent-at-large Geraldo Rivera. Thank you for joining me on this Friday evening. Lots to discuss, and Geraldo, I'll begin with you. According to Senator Franken's spokesperson, he is expected to speak to reporters on Sunday. What do you think that he might say or should say to convince people that he should, in fact, not resign?
Well, he's been apologizing, nonstop, kind of, Kimberly. Yeah. And I fully expect that he'll say that he's sorry, but that he's staying in his seat. I just have to make a quick observation. I hate when the intensity of our reaction to some of these allegations is directly related to the political party of the person being accused. I want us to have the same reaction regardless of whether the perpetrator is a Republican or a Democrat. The other thing I want to say is that I understand when someone's an accused rapist, or like Bill Cosby, or an accused sexual predator like Judge Moore is. But sex harassment, there's a big wave now. What is it exactly? Conyers wears his underwear in front of a staffer. He's an 88-year-old man. I don't know. I heard someone say today it definitely was not sexual. The thing that bugs me about Congressman Conyers specifically is that he got somehow the taxpayer to pay his settlement for allegedly being out of line with one of his staffers. That's what I don't like.
Geraldo, so you're saying he should get a pass because he's 88 and it's not sexy in his underwear? I think this is ridiculous. It's about also how he makes the other person feel. It's totally inappropriate. You shouldn't be having or conducting any kind of meeting like that. We're not giving an age pass for something like that.
My problem, Kimberly, is very simple. If it's not criminal conduct that's being alleged, then what is it exactly? It's going to the Ethics Committee, they say now. The Ethics Committee cannot, by law, review something that is a crime. If it's a crime that is alleged, then it goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office, as you, as a great attorney, already know. But, you know, so people minimize the ethics committee. The ethics committee is not even going to get it if they're alleging a crime. If they're not alleging a crime, then what exactly is this? Are we using this new wave of sex harassment allegations to get back at bad bosses or hated ex-lovers? You know, I just worry that we've started down a very slippery slope here, Kimberly.
Well, there has to be, of course, Lieutenant Colonel, some, you know, due process in a situation, some standards, and also, you know, adjudicating the situation in terms of developing a fact pattern, verifying witnesses and information. But I don't think in any way it should minimize the seriousness, you know, of the allegations. They should be taken seriously and thoroughly investigated.
You're absolutely right, Kimberly. And what is kind of disturbing for me is the fact that who are these people that decide? Who are the people that decide which women are to be believed,
right,
and which women are not to be believed? And I think that is what is most, you know, confusing about this situation. And this goes all the way back to, let's be very honest, with Bill Clinton and the women who accused him, but yet they were not supposed to be believed and they were attacked. But yet when you have a 40-year-old case and when you talk about Roy Moore, then all of a sudden that's to be believed.
Right.
But yet when it comes to Al Franken, this is just a guy who likes to hug people and it's no big deal. Or with John Conyers, we want to look a different way. There has to be a consistency in what we see happening out there, and I just don't see that consistency.
All right, Kaylee, how do you see this situation? You know, it's tough because it can have some effect in terms of on gender lines, to see how women perceive it, or someone who's been in a situation like this. You know, we're all for due process and adjudicating it and determining the credibility and the veracity of the witnesses and their statements. It is more complicated when things go back way in time, as Lieutenant Colonel has posited.
Well, Kimberly, that's right. And that's why every single one of these cases has to be looked at in isolation. They can't be lumped together. Every single person should be heard. I think it's very troubling what we've seen, particularly from Congressman Conyers, when you see someone who paid $27,000 of federal taxpayer money to settle with a woman who was accusing him of firing her for not accepting his sexual advances. That in and of itself, that misuse of the taxpayer funds should be enough to call for his resignation. But what we're seeing, Kimberly, really is a case of the powerful preying on the people. It defies party lines. It's people in powerful positions, be it in Hollywood, be it in media, be it in Congress, preying on the American people. It's the swamp that Donald Trump talked about all along.
Okay, well, you know, Geraldo, the Democratic Party and liberals have made themselves out to be the champion of women's rights. I mean, do you think we can expect a march on Washington on behalf of the women that have made these allegations or been victimized or had to sit there and have a meeting with Conyers in his underwear?
Well, I wouldn't hold my breath on that one, Kimberly. But let me just give you an example. You're mentioning Franken now, and Franken's famous now, notorious or infamous for patting the butt of someone that he took a picture with, allegedly. So that's outrageous, we say. What about the allegation that's gained quite a bit of legitimacy and currency that George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, from his wheelchair tells a joke when women stand alongside him? Who's your favorite comedian? Mine is David Copperfield, you know, and he pats the ladies on the butt. I mean, if it's outrageous for Franken, it's outrageous for George H.W. Bush, and you talk about senior citizens, he's, what, 93 years old now.
I know, but you were the one that seemed to be making some kind of exception for those that are elderly or infirm after a certain age, that they get some kind of, you know, get out of sexual harassment jail free card.
Well, maybe I was speaking, you know, as a senior citizen myself. But my main point with Conyers particularly is that the allegations now, it's one thing when he was going after allegedly some subordinate, and that's the one that got paid off with the taxpayer money. That's outrageous. And the fact that he somehow weaseled his way so he didn't have to pay it out of his own pocket, the fact that it was secret for so long, also outrageous. I think Congress is totally complicit. I think on right and left, Democrat, Republican, I can give you 100 cases where Mark Foley, Vitter, you know, Craig, go on and on and on. How many times our leaders have been guilty of these misdeeds, Kimberly?
Well, also, and taxpayer money shouldn't go to have to pay for these misdeeds and this kind of, you know, abuse that people have to suffer in the workplace. I mean, Kaylee, what's your response when he brings up the other side? Do you feel there's a double standard, you know, or a hypocrisy of any sort?
No, I think from the Republican Party, you've seen an unequivocal stance from both the president and from our party saying if any allegation is true, that individual should step down. It's a clear standard, but it's one we haven't seen embraced by the Democrats. They've covered for Bill Clinton for 3 decades. And now with Congressman Conyers, you have one Democratic lawmaker as of this morning calling for him to resign. Maybe it's a handful now, but where is the consistency from their party? Don't cover for your own. Be the party of women. That's what you claim you are. Well, you're not acting like it.
All right. Well, Lieutenant Colonel, how about that? Because, they do really hold themselves out to be the gold standard, but the response and assessment and, being proactive on behalf of women in the sense of the liberals and Democrats has not been their most, worthy shining moment.
No, you're absolutely right. The actions do not match up with the rhetoric. And you brought up the point, I'm waiting for Madonna or Ashley Judd or some of these other individuals to come out and start screaming from the rafters, but you're not going to hear that. I was in Congress when the Anthony Weiner incident came down. And, for him to have done the things that he did and then continue to maybe even run for mayor of New York City. I mean, you got to put these things in perspective. But if Congress wants to do the right thing, Congress needs to let us know in full transparency who are the people that were the recipients of these taxpayer-funded bailouts for their abhorrent behavior. That is something that they need to do, or else it will be seen as some big boys club.
I think he makes a great point, Geraldo, which there has to be a full and thorough, a fair accounting from both sides in terms of how these things were handled, investigation back to understand that, where were the taxpayer funds allocated to, and after what kind of, due process, et cetera, to be able to vet the allegations and then also to act in a way, expeditiously to make sure that there was some kind of justice and there was some kind of reprisal and some kind of education going forward so that this would in fact not continue to occur.
Well, you have Wieners going to jail, so justice has been served in his case. You've got this other Republican Congressman, Barton, out of Texas, who just got caught sending lewd pictures of his genitalia to girls he was courting. What's he going to do?
Well, but
now?
that was his statement is that it was in a relationship that he was having a relationship with these different women, and that there was some back and forth in terms of, please don't try to blackmail me with these photos, et cetera, that he was going to talk to Capitol Police.
I was at Polo, the restaurant that you love also in New York, and Kathy Lee Gifford was there. Erica and I saw Kathy Lee at a table as we were leaving. And she says to me, Kathy Lee looks up, says to Erica and me, can you believe what's going on right now? I don't even know who to say hello to. I'm afraid that someone's going to consider it sexual harassment. I mean, maybe you know it when you see it. But my point is you need clear standards, and you need a standardized repercussions for bad behavior. Obviously, a criminal case, Weiner goes to jail. Good riddance. That's to bad rubbish. That's where we should go. I think that the Congress has to clean its own house.
All right, we're tight here on time, but Kayleigh, I'm going to give you a final word as well.
Yeah, I would just say that we have a systemic problem that when an accuser brings forth a claim against a powerful lawmaker, they're instructed to go to immediate counseling, and then their name and the name of that congressman is shrouded in secrecy. It's the powerful versus the people. It's inexcusable, and Congress needs to clean this up.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel, Congress, a lot more needs to be done here. It seems like they've been failing pretty abysmally.
Yeah, so a lot more needs to be done. I find it very interesting that you have Congress up there deciding how much money that we can keep ourselves as they go through this tax bill process, but yet they're using our money to take care of their abhorrent behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. That's unbelievable. Bad deeds. Okay, thank you so much, panel. Fantastic to have you here tonight.
Thank you.